So when it comes to post-scarcity, there isn't much theory out there as to what post-scarcity would look like as a society and really how we would get there. So today what I wanted to talk about is some of the economic principles and practices that we could maybe adopt that could aid us in transitioning to, and indeed what we could apply in the context of a post-scarcity future. Now, when talking about post-scarcity, one of the first things that actually comes to mind is sustainability. Now, before the Return to Monkey Brigade start marching in, I wanted to mention something really important, and that is that for the past 200 years or so, we've developed and we are now living in an industrialized society. And even in a post-scarcity future, that will likely continue. We can make industry better for the environment, for people, but nevertheless, it's always going to be there. We can decentralize it, what have you, but there will always be some form of industry. So what sustainability really means for me, personally, is a sustainable economy is one where we can carry out productive activity that produces things that people demand continuously in ways that don't have a negative long-term impact on the ecosphere or on society. We call things like fossil fuels unsustainable because of their finite amount in the earth, their ability to cause an increase in the greenhouse effect via the emissions of CO2, the release of CO2 into the atmosphere, which thus has the consequence of causing climate change, which causes ecological instability, which in fact eventually causes social instability. Whereas in contrast with something like solar, the sun is always going to be there, no greenhouse gases are emitted, and things like solar cells can operate pretty much passively. They don't really require regular maintenance. And thus, logically, that kind of process of generating energy is what's called sustainable. It can be sustained over a long period of time without really much impact. And this doesn't just apply to energy, it applies to everything. It applies to agriculture, manufacturing, construction, you name it. And something that really, really helps with this is the circular economy. The idea of a circular economy is to basically take recycling and apply it to most, if not all, aspects of the economy. And that doesn't just mean practicing, circular economy principles, like recycling plastics, metals, debris from demolished buildings, etc. What it also means is designing our economy, designing our infrastructure with circular economics in mind, so that as resources become of no use for one application, they immediately become used for another, or they immediately get recycled. Not only is this good for sustainability through the reduction of waste and through the reduction of the need for new raw resources, it's also good for proliferating sustainability by providing a continuous stream of resources that are available for use, and thus creating more and more abundance. If you watch some documentaries such as Green Planet by David Attenborough on BBC, you'll know that nature does this all the time. It recycles all the resources and doesn't leave a thing to go to waste. The most basic example of this is the symbiotic relationship between many animals and plants seen throughout nature that, provide nutrients to each other, among other benefits. We can do a similar thing here in our economy. I guess in nature they don't really have an economy, but in nature you have right there a fully functioning circular system. Going back to the whole energy thing for a second, one of the kind of green selling points that capitalist businesses are quite a favourite of, especially in the tech industry, is this notion of energy efficiency, which is pretty meaningless considering the resources that are often needed to achieve such efficiency. Take an incandescent bulb versus an LED one. One uses way more energy, but is very easily recyclable because it is so simple in its construction. The other is very energy efficient, but is very difficult to recycle and separate its components because it requires more complex construction with its circuitry, with the design of the actual semiconductor itself, among other things. What we have to consider when we transition into a post-scarcity future is we have to take the energy efficiency of something and the resource efficiency of something and determine which one outweighs the other. Another example, one perhaps at an industrial scale level, is the manufacture of nitrates, which are very important for fertilizers, for medicine, and many other things. And they require the manufacture of nitric acid, which through the current industrial process, the most prevalent one, uses quite rare catalysts, and at least catalysts with rare materials in them, and it requires quite harsh conditions, and so it needs equipment that can handle that. There is a process called the Birkeland-Eyde process, which essentially does the same thing, but at ambient conditions, and just takes regular air and converts it into that particular resource. But it is very inefficient at doing so. And so we have another dichotomy where we have one process that uses less energy but requires specialized equipment and uses rare metals, rare resources for its as part of the process. Whereas we have another process which is nowhere near as efficient, yet uses common materials and can be done under ambient conditions. Now, if we can find some way to improve the latter and avoid using the former, then that would be good in my book, because of one reason. The means to generate energy are endless. We have, many tools at our disposal to just generate more and more energy. Silicon is the most abundant, it's the second most abundant element in our crust, in the Earth's crust, which is the main component of solar panels. There's a heap of other renewables which can back that up, and we can end up just with renewables alone producing multiple times our current energy demand. Not to mention we have other things like algal fuels as well, which, if done right, can actually be carbon negative. And so we have many means of generating more energy. Unfortunately, we can't say the same for physical resources. And so that is why I tend to favour saving more resources over gaining efficiency in terms of energy, because it's pretty logical. Even from a sustainability standpoint, we have an indefinite amount of energy at our disposal from the sun, and we have a finite amount of resources. I think it's pretty clear what our focus should be. And hey, if we are able to reduce the amount of rare resources we use while still providing people with the goods and services they demand, then that means we are able to more abundantly provide those things that people need and want. And this sort of ties into the next thing I wanted to talk about, which I think is pretty fundamental to the idea of post-scarcity, and that is the provision of all basic needs for everyone freely. That means giving people free access to food, to housing, to healthcare, to quality education, and so on. These are things that we can provide for everyone right now with our current economic capacity. Within a post-scarcity future, we could provide these things pretty effortlessly. Now, it would be idealistic for me to say that within a post-scarcity society, everyone could have, their own car, their own mansion. They could have, South America as their back garden, and all that sort of stuff. Anything you could think of like that. The type of post-scarcity I envision is one not of individual lavishness necessarily, but one of communal luxury. Let me give an example. Say there's a kitchen. Imagine a kitchen. It's a really, really nice kitchen. It's big. It has a nice big fridge. It has all the cooking utensils you need. It has all the mod cons, all of it. Except this kitchen is a communal kitchen. It's a place where people from the maybe not like local community wide, but people from say the housing co-op or whatever come to prepare food, cook, socialize with other people, etc. This is a communal kitchen, but it has it's luxurious. It has the best of everything. If we apply that to a lot of the things in our society, then we can sate people's demand for luxurious things, to have nice things, but we can do it in a way that is efficient in its resource use. I think I've actually talked about this in the past, about having access abundance, having the community as sort of an extension of your home, an extension of everyone's home, in fact. The freezer aisle at your local supermarket? Well, imagine if everything there was free and everyone could just go and just pick what they want or need. Imagine if the freezer aisle it's your freezer and it's everyone else's freezer as well. That's the kind of idea I'm getting at here. Within a community, you could have communal game rooms, communal workshops, communal art spaces, and so on. You could extend this to so many things. Anyway, that's all I really have for you now. I will have some Edenia stuff coming up soon. But until then, I hope you are well. And thank you very much for watching. And I'll see you all next time. Take care. Bye for now.